Don't know is how this plays into what happened on Friday. Certainly that's one thing that authorities are looking at. And the mother just returned from Lebanon.
While the police were investigating the shooting, they noticed something odd about the firearm used. The shooter had a gun that some refer to as a ghost gun. A ghost gun isn't built by an actual gun manufacturer, but by someone who buys gun parts and assembles the gun themselves, usually at home. There isn't a serial number on the ghost gun, making it impossible for investigators to track. When the police searched through the burnt remains in the home, they found multiple boxes that had once held different gun parts, as well as a receipt from the parts. It was clear to investigators that the shooter had bought the gun parts online and assembled it himself. The police also found a drill press and cutting tools that were presumed to be used to assemble the gun. This is a legal loophole that is difficult for authorities to control, as it's perfectly legal to buy gun parts online, but it's near impossible to track these parts and know exactly where the gun and gun parts will end up.
The police say that he basically was able to buy these component parts through various magazines, via the web, and the components themselves are legal. That 80% gun is legal.
Upon searching the residence, investigators had found a letter denying him permission to purchase a firearm. While the letter doesn't specifically state why the shooter was denied the right to purchase a gun, we can only assume that it was probably due to the 2006 incident where he was caught researching assault weapons and bomb-making videos. The shooter had left a couple of clues that proved that the assault was something that he had been planning. He had been an avid player of the online computer game World of Warcraft. He logged on to the game before the killings and left a message for his online friends saying he would, quote, miss playing games with them. Police also found a 3-page goodbye note in the shooter's pocket after he had been killed. Investigators were hoping that the shooter would write some sort of motive in the letter to give them an idea of why he thought he had to commit such an abysmal act. Ultimately, they would be very disappointed that the shooter didn't leave any sort of clues in the letter. He apologized to his mom for the shootings and said how he hoped that she would benefit from his father's, her husband's estate. He also expressed remorse for taking the lives of his father and brother.
What we know about this note is this is something that was actually found on his body. He was carrying it with him, handwritten, 3 to 4 pages in length. And what police are saying is that it was a conversational note. They took great pains. You heard the police chief there saying that it was a farewell note. They're not characterizing it as a suicide note.
The Santa Monica College shooting brought a government loophole to light that very few knew about, which is purchasing gun parts separately and building firearms. This is an issue that can only get worse. Now, with the use of 3D printers, people are able to print their own gun parts, assembling them and creating their own gun. After the shooting, the shooter was buried in the cemetery, next to his brother and father. Another factor that investigators wanted to share with the public was the importance of what is referred to as, quote, red flag behavior. Red flag behavior is when a person exhibits alarming behavior that may cause them to take the lives of innocent people at any point in time. Some of these red flags are sudden changes in behavior, strange writings or drawings, speaking of the desire to hurt others, a sudden interest in violent weapons, and purchases of large amounts of ammunition or tactical gear. Please, remember to always speak up, no matter how silly you may think it sounds. If you see something, say something. You could be saving the lives of innocent people.
It should not be a cause for people to suggest, I'm not going to say anything because they're not going to do anything. That's the last thing we want people to feel. Kids are going to hear about it before anybody else. So if they don't feel comfortable telling a teacher, they should obviously feel comfortable telling their parents. They should obviously be comfortable telling their friends. And you know how kids are. Once one student tells another, it's going to get out. And we do want it to get out. We want it to get to the right people who can handle it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Active Shooter, the podcast. Remember, if you see something, say something. there's no telling how many lives you may be saving.
A huge thank you to Darren Curtis, who composed some of the music used in this episode. Check him out at darrencurtismusic.com. DARRENCURTIS music.com.
Active shooter. Reports of an active shooter.
Active shooter
Mass casualty incidents.
Make sure to check us out on social media. We have a discussion group on Facebook. Just search for Active Shooter, the podcast discussion group. You can also find us on Instagram at Active the Podcast and Twitter at Podcast Active. For just $1 a month, you can get access to ad-free episodes, early release episodes when available, and a shout out on the show. Just go to patreon.com/Active the Podcast. Thank you, and be safe.